If you look in the center of your bulletin, when you open it up, you'll see at the bottom, this Fellowship of the Inner Light was founded by Paul Solomon. I'm saying this for people who aren't familiar with this church. Paul Solomon was a former Baptist minister who learned much about Edgar Cayce and found that he could give readings in the way that Edgar Cayce gave readings. And he began teaching, and the essence of his teachings was, over this past weekend, Inner Light Consciousness taught here. David Barry was one of Paul Solomon's early students, and David accepted the mission to carry the teachings of Inner Light Consciousness around the world, which is what he did. And he's still teaching ILC, but he also gives marvelous readings. I asked David for at least one reading, and he was able to go through the physical body and describe each part and what it needed, or if it was in balance, or how to restore vitality to the body. So we have a tall figure among us this morning for inner understanding, David Barry.
I'm going to begin by saying, and you know this, what a joy it is to see these familiar faces that I don't get to see often enough. And also to say what a thrill it is to see some faces here that I've never seen before. So welcome to every one of you who is new since I've been here last. I probably go back too far, and I'm just going to dip into the past for a few moments here. It must have been 1972 or 1973, at a time when our country was divided, bitterly divided. And Paul Solomon did a July prophecy reading for the country, as he loved to do in July. And he always hoped that someone would ask. You know, you can't do it if no one asks. That's the law. And he focused on Richard Nixon, who was up to here in the Watergate controversy at the time. And honestly, our congregation was just as divided then as the rest of the nation. He didn't focus on that division. He didn't focus on the issues that were supposedly at stake. He didn't focus on the headlines. He said, this man, this president, is living out the conflict and the divide in our nation. For this man, the load is unbearable, and I want you all to pray that he not take his own life. It was utterly surprising. It was not a sermon. It was an invitation. We're in a time, once again, where we're divided. And goodness knows, we're all sick to death of the headlines and the supposed issues that people are, in fact, bitterly fighting over. And I'm not going to refer again to those recent events that are dragging us all down this morning. Instead, I'll move forward in time a little. In 2011, a group of generous souls asked me to do a prophecy reading for the USA. And what I'm about to share with you, if I did my job, are not my words. I believe every time I do a reading that I'm going to convey the words of the Masters. And at the end of every reading I do, I ask the conductor to throw a wide net. What else could or should be given at this time? This is the way we put that. July 29, 2011. There's more. There's one thing more. There's a watchword being given for all those who attend to spirit in making these adjustments. And the watchword is integrity. Every one of us will find ourselves soon and repeatedly and over time in a situation to diffuse anger from reaction, to support reasonable voices, to help avert the selection and punishment of scapegoats as conditions here and there slip into crisis. That will be the most fundamental job of the spiritually minded people in every culture for the next 50 years of this age. Do not punish. Do not oppress. Do not cast out those who are doing the work. Do not do to the neighbor whose name you cannot pronounce what you would not have done to you. That's a pretty tall set of orders. I know it. And I blush to think that I have anything to add to those words. I'm going to try. We believe our prayers are powerful. We believe that the light we generate in this light center affects the world. I believe it affects the entire world. For whatever reason, and it wasn't my choice, in the last year, once again, I've had the opportunity to travel the world. Not teaching ILC, at least not directly. Teaching ILC to some children, to 15 children on the ship called Semester at Sea. They were my responsibility while my wife was teaching her faculty material to the 537 students on that ship that went all the way around the world. So I got to teach ILC to children, which to me is probably the best opportunity I could ask for. And most of you know I spent my professional life as a school psychologist, caring for children, so thank you, Lord, is how I feel about that. So we went around the world and we visited orphanages and schools and border shelters in 11 countries, 5 days in each country. I didn't see anybody in any country who was living out the headlines. I didn't see anybody in Myanmar, where we went, who honestly was even aware that there was a genocide happening in their own country. They were trying to live peacefully. They were trying to be good Buddhists. They were living in ignorance, we can say that. They were living the best way they knew how. And in India and Japan and China and Vietnam and South Africa and Ghana, I saw the same. We are not our governments. When we say China wants a war or Russia's doing bad things, that is not true. Governments and leaders are doing bad things. The millions who live in each of those countries are doing pretty much what we do. Trying to make it good for our communities and for our families. Trying to live up to, oh Lord, the scriptures we read and the prayers we make. It's a new challenge every day. I know that. I know you know it too. So here in this fellowship, we come to renew ourselves. We come above all to renew ourselves in love for this family. This one right here. And for that handful who couldn't make it today, for whatever reason. Also for those who are scattered around the world and still studying ILC and Paul's words. And I had the great good fortune in March to visit Ireland, to spend a day with Mary Siobhan McGibbon and Jerry Rice, still spreading the ILC word after all these years. And still finding a ready audience. I'd love to say to you, I've said before, Lord, I'd like to see us all out there doing that international work again. Right at this moment, I don't know what to suggest for step one. I haven't forgotten, though, and I know some of you haven't forgotten either. So we're spreading the ILC word with each other. I totally believe and have faith that we're raising up a new generation of people capable of carrying ILC forward. That's why I'm glad to see new faces. ILC is not something you get in a workshop, not in a weekend, not in a week, or not as, I can't believe this, as we used to do it 10 nights in a row. That was the 70s for you. We filled those halls, by the way. We're sharing it here where it counts, where we can fall in love with each other and learn to forgive each other for being ordinary humans with differences. And that's the work of the mystery school. That's the only work of the mystery school. We're not here to create a new Bible. We're not here to create a movement that one day will stand up and occupy the White House or the Kremlin or any other great hall. We're here to fall in love with each other, use our tools to work out our differences. That's the heart and the soul of the mystery school. And I can look around, and I remember some of you in your 20s and your 30s. And holy smoke, I never could have predicted what you would become, what I see when I look at you now. Well, that's part of ILC. If you spend some time in a mystery school, you will be sent forth. You may be sent forth back to the community you came from. You may be sent forth back to the profession or the calling that you had. Or you may be sent forth to something totally unthinkable at this time, but you will be sent forth. And then, like me, you'll come back here as often as you can to renew yourself with your family. To use the esoteric language, to renew yourself in the lodge which supports you in the work you do. I'm not going to go on about that side of things. God knows we have plenty of books upstairs that explain it all. We renew ourselves here. We renew ourselves to do important things like raise families, support a community, and I'll mention this in passing. Welcome to my new second grandson, Kevin Young, who's 13 weeks old today. And thank God for me, he and his mother live with me and my wife in our home, and we're having a wonderful time. I'm real glad he's here. Will I teach him ILC? Well, I'm a little older than he is. I may have to teach him by example and hope he gets it. That is how we teach, of course, by example. And I'll make one short plea when differences arise among us. Our only job is to set an example of acceptance. If someone has complaints, and they're often founded in reality, we sit and we listen, and we love them, and we don't buy in. There are always lots of good logical reasons to have a controversy or a difference. There were lots of good logical reasons and wonderful rhetoric spent on the American Civil War and the American Revolution and the civil rights struggle of the 50s. And none of those words mattered one whisker. What mattered was it was time to clean up our act and make some changes that were overdue. We do that best when we sit and listen and love that person in front of us, and we don't buy in. Okay? We have joked for 40 years about our drama here in this fellowship, in which we are not different from every other church I ever knew. Drama comes with being part of a church community, and it passes. Honestly, folks, it doesn't mean a thing. Don't fall out of fellowship, even with those who say, I'm going to worship somewhere else for a while. Even if, as in my case, that while turned out to be several decades. I was mistaken. I was foolish. Don't you be foolish. So, what can we do about the terrible state of affairs in the world and in the nation? Well, it's come up in several readings recently. Endure in love. Those are the words that keep occurring in those readings. Don't judge another. Don't close the door on another. Don't turn to invective or weapons. Don't support those who do. It does not matter, not to me and not to anyone else, if we think we're of the right or of the left or of the outer fringe. It does not matter. What matters is how we treat that other person when the controversy comes to light. How we reach into the temple that we build inside ourselves every time we enter meditation and share that light. Now, I've been an activist at times in my life. I don't think I did a lot of good. I think I added to the clamor. And there have been times when I resisted the temptation to share my wonderful ideas about how to solve some issue or another. Honest, I don't do that anymore. I hope I won't be sucked into it one more time. What I need to do is look at that person in the eye and love them and remember what they're trying to do with their life, their family, and their community, and speak to that. We're going to be having to do a lot of that. So 8 years ago, we were told in that same reading, this kind of discord will go on for 50 years. Whew. I hope this doesn't go on in our backyard for 50 years, but we may need to have some longevity in this peacemaking thing. And longevity, honest, does mean not taking sides. It really does. And it means not just not buying into panic or anger. It means something we don't talk about much in ILC, but Paul Solomon talked about it a lot. It means building fearlessness. We won't get angry. We won't panic. We won't endorse the draconian solution if we, each of us, is fearless. I've said this many times, and I don't mean for it to be self-serving. You have to be fearless when you go into the temple, because you're going to see things as they really are. God's love never changes. Human failings, unfortunately, don't change much either. We need to be renewed in God's love to deal with the failings. Now, I hope, like everyone here hopes, none of these currents will devolve into violence. We've had enough. I hope, as a nation, we can find our way back to civil discourse. Looking at the left and the right, everyone seems to have lost the gift to find healing words, to speak solutions that might lead to unity, whatever their allegiances may be. So I pray for our leaders, and I pray for all of them. I don't just pray for the ones I like. We need some of that leadership. Words of unity, words of healing. Wise words. We look back at the founding fathers and we read their speeches and we forget that somebody in the audience was shouting boo when those words were spoken. And we forget that the newspapers where those speeches were printed were very likely to be raided and burned out the following day. That's the climate in which those words were spoken. It isn't words. The prayers and the feelings of the least educated, lowest earning, hardest struggling individual in this world count as much if we're bringing peace as the words of the exalted, the mighty, and those who have captured the high podiums and the good speaking places. You and I are every bit as capable of making change in this world as they. Nobody here commands an army, I know that. Nobody here, I'm pretty sure, would, if they could, send bombers and drones to do that which we don't want to do up close and personal. We can send our prayers. We can embrace the opportunities to do good work in our communities. We can pray over what's in our hands. It's more important than praying over the White House. It's kind of a simple message. I know that. I've even said it all before. So I'm grateful for new faces. I hope I go on saying it. I do believe it. I hope it helps one or two of you here today to say, I'm not going to pray over these headlines. I'm going to pray over what I can do. I'm going to pour love out on the world. My human love is good enough. And that's my prayer for all of us and all of you. If I had something to say to you that would cause us all to pile on a bus and drive over to Washington and make something happen, I suppose I would share it, but I don't. Only to remind you that the things that people in conflict say and do have never changed in the history of humankind. We've been through this before. And it's people like us who bring us through it again. We have our jobs to do. Integrity is the watchword. Care for our neighbors, whether they speak our language or vote our way or worship in the same way that we do. That's the job. That's my prayer for us and for you. And perhaps for the first time in coming to this fellowship, I may have said enough and finished on time. Thank you.